He is a 14-year-old who is really interested in gardening, I think as a means to better his chef abilities. This guy can cook like nobody's business. We're going to talk about raised beds and talk about insect control and the different methods you can use for that.
The taste is so much different. Plus, you don't know what they're putting on there to keep them preserved. You don't know what you're putting on them to keep them fresh because they come from different parts of the world.
Right.
Tomatoes rot really quickly. I mean, everything decays fast because it's organic. So whenever they put sort of chemicals, you don't know what they do later on in life. So that's why I made a garden.
Okay, so let's talk insects for a minute. What do you guys do here for insect control? In Alabama, we have high humidity, we have a lot of rainfall. It's pretty much impossible to get through a growing season without a pest problem.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend?
Before we got into the more organic side, which honestly did better for us, we used to spray everything with insecticides, and we got rid of the beneficial bugs too, because it's poison. It's not like selective. We have a lot more life in the garden. We have a lot more different types of varieties of insects, which for an ecosystem, that's very important. Insects can make or break a garden depending on what types you have or what's naturally there, or like a lack of balance through the ones that feed and the ones that prey. So
Everything comes back to balance.
Mm-hmm.
It really does.
I let this stay here because they attract a lot of beneficial insects, which people would see as a weed. They would usually take that out, but I think.
All right, so what are these?
These are assassin bugs, little ones, and they look like spiders. And what they do is they go, as soon as they hatch, kind of from this point on, they'll climb in here and they'll get on the aphids and all kinds of, it's a predator bug. And they call them assassin bugs because they spear them with their mouthpiece and they eat them. So cool name for a crazy looking little bug.
Eggplants, which have been doing pretty well, and tomatoes, which are somewhat related to nightshade, which was used as a poison back in the 18th century, mostly in Germany.
So what did they use the nightshade for?
They use nightshade, poison was usually seen as like a woman's weapon.
Yeah.
Because men usually
Well, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense. Nightshade, which they thought were like the same stuff, was put into aqua tofana, which was a beauty product for women it was disguised as a beauty product, but it was actually like a poison for their husbands because, men treated women like birds were them. So they got rid of them like that and they put it in their soup. And someone tried to poison Napoleon with like putting tomatoes into their soup because, they thought that they were like poisonous. But really, they just always served tomatoes on mercury plates. And since tomatoes were acidic, they took the mercury and all the poison that it had on the plate, it would soak it up, and then they were essentially eating mercury-covered tomatoes.
Listen, women have been clever since the beginning of time.
Know.
So let's talk a little bit more about the tomatoes, in that people grow tomatoes honestly in all different ways, and you're going to have some people say you should definitely stake them, you should run them on a trellis, you should use a cage, at the end of the day, it's however you want to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not here to throw stones on how anybody grows their tomatoes, but
Not trying to get into a tomato scandal.
no tomato scandal. So I see you're using the tomato cages. Has that worked well for you in the past?
It's kept them separated for they grow so large that they just connect over time. And it's you're trying to tame a beast, because tomato plants usually over here, they get humongous. They keep them in place mostly.
I noticed you have some marigolds planted here. Is that just for looks, or is there a reason why you planted those?
Every ornamental plant that seems like they're for decoration isn't just for decoration. They're always used for marigolds for attracting all the insects that you want, butterflies, bees, anything that pollinates your garden.
See, you guys have a chicken coop here too. Are you able to collect eggs daily?
Yes.
Nice.
Also, here's a good tip. Calcium is very good for your garden, and eggshells are full of it. It's like their base substances. So what I do is, if I have too many eggs, I go over here, I crack an egg for some of the dogs because it makes their coat shiny, and then I just put the eggs in here.
That's really smart. That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. So most everybody uses eggs, and so many times we just waste what we see as scraps that can absolutely be used in the garden. Another use for eggshells is when they're broken up and put in the around the plant. The soft body insects like different caterpillars and things that are going to eat the leaves pretty much just
Drives them off.
well, it's too sharp, so it'll either cut there and they'll kill them, or they just won't go over it because it's sharp. Yeah, super interesting. For someone who's never gardened before, would you advise raised beds or planting directly into the ground, and why?
Okay. The reason why we got raised beds, our soil is almost like pure clay, so it keeps in a lot of like water, and it can get root rot, all that terrible stuff. And you have reusable garden boxes, and they're filled with like sand mixture, topsoil, and it keeps it from, having root rot or like having like anchor root.
Mm-hmm. And I think another advantage to raised beds is if you live in town and you just don't have a tremendous amount of room, you can put raised beds pretty much anywhere. These, it looks like, are made out of like 2x8s, 2x10s. But you can make them out of anything. I've seen, rough cut lumber and tin. I've seen, cinder blocks. Any material you've got that, can make a bed. Can hold soil. So another advantage, I think, to having raised beds is, you don't have to bend over so much to harvest your plant. So for anybody, that's advantageous.
So whenever I'm old, this will become really handy.
Another advantage, here I am with all these advantages, I don't even have raised beds, the weed pressure. You don't have as many weeds in raised beds. Remember when you became interested in plants?
When I was a kid, around maybe 10, I asked my mom for a plant that I could take care of, because I had this weird obsession, honestly, with plants. I don't know where it came from.
Dude, I understand this obsession.
Know.
So thank you guys for joining us today, and thank you, Cole, for letting me interrupt your, you're not really busy right now.
No, I'm not busy at all.
So anyway, thank you for letting me interrupt your day and sharing with us the reasons that you've gotten into gardening. I think it's really interesting how, we think of the older generation and preserving that legacy, which I do and I value so much, but I don't want to dismiss or overlook the younger generation who is actually really important to this process in continuing the legacy. So I actually knew Cole's grandfather, Byron, and when I first came up with this idea so many years ago, he was absolutely on my list of people to interview. And so when the idea came back up and I was talking to my son about it, immediately I had regret that I never got to interview him before he passed away. Not only was he a wealth of knowledge, he was just a really amazing guy and hilarious. So we missed out. We missed out on a lot not getting to interview him. But next best thing, his grandson. Okay, guys, so stay tuned for after he's harvested these vegetables, and we will see what he decides to cook. We will see what he has created. Stay tuned because we can see what this guy.
See you next time. Is that what you're gonna do?
That one's making it.
No, darn
That
it!
one's
I gave you
making it.
content.
Yep.